Hello and welcome to another pen video from me, Penultimate Dave. So I have here another ink comparison video, and this is Lamy ink comparison number 1. So I think with that, let's go and swab up some of these inks. So the first ink here is Lamy Green. So let's do an ink swatch here. So we'll do the ink swatch here. And we'll do a second pass. Now, people do ask me, why do I do a second pass? And the answer really is that I find that you get different types of inks and different types of nibs. Some inks are more wetter when you write with them, and likewise sometimes the nibs are more wetter. So I try to do a comparison here between a dry and a wet ink, and that's just to show if you put this ink in a wet writing nib, you're going to see something more wetter like this, and if you put it in a dry nib, it's going to be something more like that. So it's not rocket science, it's just that's why I do two swatches, or that I'll do two passes effectively over one. So this is Lamy Green. And I find that this is a really lovely green colour ink. I think there's another ink that I like, which is, I think, similar. At least, I think it's similar, and that's Waterman Harmonious Green. But this is I think a lot of Lamy inks are actually quite underrated. I just do like these Lamy inks. The next ink is Lamy Pink. And this actually, I want to get the name right because it's not just Lamy Pink, it's Lamy Vibrant Pink. And this is a really beautiful pink ink, and you'll see that in a moment. So let's do an ink swatch. And you can see that this is quite a interesting pink. And again, I will do a second pass, just so you can see how it looks, but I'll leave this bit dry. And this is Lamy, and this is Vibrant Pink. But for me, I love how this writes in a pen. I really do. I'm not really a pink ink lover, but I do use pink inks from time to time. The next ink is Lamy Blue. So we'll do an ink swatch. Now, I do find that this ink is a little bit more on the lubricated side, so it tends to actually be quite nice. And I find it flows very well in a pen. So there we go. There's a second pass there. And this is Lamy Blue. But that, again, is... I do honestly feel that these Lamy inks are underrated. I think a lot of people don't really buy Lamy inks. Or maybe they do. I just don't... I don't see or hear anybody, and I have a lot of pen pals, and nobody writes to me with Lamy ink. It's just, I don't know, the inks are actually really good inks. So the next ink is a smaller Lamy bottle, but this is Lamy Black. You can see there. So we'll do an ink swatch here. Do a second pass, just so you can see how wet this nib can write. So this is Lamy Black, and you will find that Lamy Black actually does sheen. Actually, to be honest, a lot of black inks do sheen. Because if you think about it, an ink with high dye saturation, so high contents of dye, will sheen. And a black ink, you can't get more concentrated dye than a black ink in theory. So a lot of blues can sheen, but also a lot of blacks. But also you can put more dye in and less other contents to make an ink sheen. But typically blacks can sheen. The next ink is Lamy Red. So we'll do an ink swatch. Now, this kind of looks a little bit more like a pinkish red. We'll do a second pass just to show what it would look like in a wet nib. And this is Lamy Red. But I actually like this. Like I typically write with this in a wet writing nib. So you can see here that you get a little bit more vibrancy on a second pass there. And then the last ink here on this ink comparison is Lamy Turquoise. So we'll do an ink swatch here. And again, I have to say this is a really lovely colour ink. And I do think these inks are very much underrated. We'll do a second pass so you can see the difference between a wet and a dry nib. And this is Lamy, and it's turquoise. But that is a really nice colour ink, and I would say that this is on par with probably Pilot Iroshizuku Konpeki. So let's take a look at these inks one more time. So we have Lamy Green here, and Lamy Green you can see has quite a lot of shading going on. So this section here is the wet, these two passes, and then this is the one pass, a single pass dry. You can see in the writing example though that this is quite a dark green ink, but it's a lot lighter in terms of the ink swatch. Now, you do see shading there in the pulled areas, but you don't see any sheen. The next ink is a really lovely ink called Lamy Vibrant Pink, and you can also see the difference between what would be a wet versus a dry nib. And you can see here that the difference in the writing example, it's a little bit more darker. This is a wet writing nib, so you will see it more towards that dark ink. You do see a little bit of shading, not as much as on the green, Lamy Green, with the Vibrant Pink, but there's no sheen there either. The next ink is Lamy Blue, and you can see, again, the difference between a wet and a dry writing nib. You can see sort of patches of shading going on here, and if I tilt this, you'll see there some sort of shading. It's not a lot. However, there is some sheen around here that you could just about see there if I get it right on camera on the lights. So there is a little bit of sheen coming out on Lamy Blue. Then we have Lamy Black, and you can see hopefully the difference between a wet and a dry nib. The dry is rather charcoaly, and I think this is why I don't like black inks a lot, because in a dry nib they do come out like charcoal. But you will see here there's not a lot of shading going on, but you will see around like this area here there is sheen. So and there is like almost like a gold sheen across a lot of it, especially including the dry sort of swab down here as well. So that's also quite nice. I do prefer the more darker, blacker inks, black inks. The next one here is Lamy Red. Now this is a very pinkish red, or an orangey pinkish red, I would say. Now, you'll see the difference between a wet and a dry nib. There's really not a lot of shading going on, and there's not any sheen either. Oh, actually, no, maybe, no, there is. I don't know if I can get this on camera, but, and let me try and keep this around here. There is some slight goldness around the pulled areas there, and let's see if I can try and get this on camera. It's really hard because I'm looking at a very difficult angle on camera, so I'm hoping you can see just a little bit of that sheen there. And then the last ink is Lamy Turquoise, and you can see the difference between a wet and a dry nib. You are getting shading, especially around pulled areas here. Now you won't, let me see here, you won't see any sheen. I'm just trying to look off camera. No, I'm not seeing any sheen there. But this is a really lovely turquoise ink, and I really do think that that ink actually is a good substitute for Pilot Washizuku Konpeki. So if you want a cheaper ink, and Lamy inks tend to be a lot cheaper than Pilot Washizuku, certainly in the UK, maybe not. I think the Pilot Washizuku inks are a lot cheaper in the USA and some other countries. But in most European countries and UK, the Pilot Washizuku inks are around £30, just under £30. So the Lamy Turquoise would definitely be a cheaper version if you wanted to look at that. Or even another one, a good one is Waterman Inspired Blue as well. That's another good substitute. So there you have it. That's my Lamy Inks comparison #1 video. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next pen video. Bye bye.